Hey everybody. So what I was just showing you guys is how to adjust your valves. I didn't want to talk because the other day when I was in here, talking while the engine was running, somehow the programming for the audio, for the video, decided to cut out the sound. And I'm just checking for oil that passes over top of this lip here in the casting. It makes a big mess over here. Only here though, but apparently it's gonna make a big mess down there at higher RPMs at the back of the valve cover. So anyways, and so what you do, and if you don't know where the information is and you can't find it, it'll be stamped onto the intake manifold. If you have a 195.6 or a 199 or a 232 inch engine that's like this, it'll be there. But anyways, and so it goes intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake. So those are the valve sequences, right? And it's 0.12, 0.12 for the intake, right? So you take a feeler gauge, 0.12, stick it through there when the engine's running. I mean, some people don't want you to do that, but it's okay. It's not the end of the world, right? And you just stick it through that point right there. When it slides through easily and it doesn't get grabbed by the rocker arm and get jammed up in between the valve stem, then that's a good measurement. Right? And you just adjust it back here, right there on that little nut that's underneath the rocker arm, right? So yeah, I did that. I've been doing that for about half an hour, just kind of really feeling it out, getting a feel for how that process is done. And yeah, I think that I've done a good job at adjusting all the valves. And another thing I really liked to be able to show you is the oil that passes through that tiny hole right there. It comes out the top there, so it comes out of the fitting that I made. This goes through there, and I guess up through this piece right here, and then it goes all along the rocker arm and goes through all of those holes, all of those small holes, and it comes out and it lubricates this whole area, which is great. Just looks awesome. Just looks like a beautiful little engine. Yeah, I haven't been noticing any leakage around this area here by the thermostat housing. No engine coolant's been leaking, which is nice. Which is pretty sweet. Yeah, I was kind of concerned about like a sound coming from the engine, like a boof, right? And it would just kind of like shake the engine. So I was just wondering what that was. But this morning I revved it up. When I first started it, I revved it up at about, like 1,000 RPMs, 1,300 RPMs, for about 4 minutes or 5 minutes or something like that. And let the engine get real warm. And after that, the engine didn't do that. Like, it didn't shudder. Like, every once in a while, it didn't go poof, right? And the whole engine didn't go dish, right? Dish, every once in a while. I mean, that's not the exact sound that it made, but it was just like a boof or like a cough. But it definitely wasn't like a knocking, it wasn't like, it wasn't constant like that. It was just like intermittent, like every once in a while. So I think all the cylinders are firing. Yeah, I don't know what it is. It might be airflow problem or something like that. I'm not too sure. I'm not 100% sure about that. But yeah, I don't really know if it's a huge deal. Anyhow, so that's what I wanted to do today, and I did it. And also, another thing I noticed was that there was some condensation that was inside the valve cover this morning. So, I mean, I think that those areas down there are supposed to be like open, since that's why there's like a little bit of like screen in there. When you look over here, there's like, it's not open, right? And like, that doesn't look very open to me, and neither does that spot right there that's been brazed. I don't know why it's been brazed. It's another mystery that no one cares about. Like the like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? No one cares. Well, I'm sure some people do. Anyways, I checked my oil this morning, and and it was a little low. So I think it's because oil burns up and evaporates, and then the vapor comes out of the heat riser tube, and also the road draft tube down here. Oh, the engine's not that hot. Anyhow, yeah. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to turn off the camera, and then I'm gonna start working on the gas tank thing, working on the gas tank issue. The issue is that I think that maybe it's possible that my old fuel cylinder might be able to be used, might be able to work. So yeah, I did do like quite a bit of adjusting on the valves. You know, all of them got a little bit of adjustment, but I don't really know. Like, I don't have a lot of experience to know what exactly that's gonna do. But anyways, yeah, I did do something according to what I was told by the guys in the forum. And the guys in the forum helped me out. They're like, hey, adjust your valves, do this, right? And so I did what they said and adjusted the valves. So it's intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust, intake, right? And then the intake is 12 and the exhaust is 16.16 inches or whatever on the, probably not 0.16 inches, but on the feeler gauge, right? And they were right. I mean, it really is pretty easy to do that. Somebody said, like, looking at the amount of oil that actually comes out of the rocker arm shaft along here, and it gets oiled, like this whole area is getting oil. I was wondering, I'm like, oh no, like a 1/8, pipe isn't going to be big enough, and and everybody else was saying the same thing at like Lord Co. and like New Line Hose and Fittings and Bumper to Bumper, but I guess they just don't know the engine. And I'm gonna tell you, whoever's watching out there that wants to know, you know what? It's enough oil. It's more than enough oil. This engine gets more than enough oil with that piping. So 1/8, and I think that 1/8 is actually like the inner diameter, but they measure it at the store by the outer diameter. I've probably already talked about that a couple times already. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna put the valve cover back on and then start paying attention to the gas tank. Yeah, so I finished setting up the carb. As far as I know, I put a return spring on here. I wanted to make it look nice and neat, but it wouldn't cooperate with me, and I couldn't jam both turns of the little spring wire underneath the nut. Wouldn't cooperate, so I just kind of left it. But this end over here is loose. It can move a little bit, so it's not binded, right? Just like this is over here. And I went out and I got a nipple. I don't know why they would call this nipple, but that's what it's called. But I used it to elevate the throttle cable bracket, because I thought that the throttle cable bracket should be in a linear path to the throttle plate, because before, when it was down there attached onto the intake manifold, it was like drooping down, right? It was like drooping down quite a bit, and I didn't want to wear out the plastic piece of this, so I elevated it. And so now the rest of it is hooked up. And yeah, when I start up the engine, now I can start it up all by myself. I don't need to have my neighbor to help me, because I can just pull on the throttle cable down here until I finish hooking up the gas pedal. But I need to put in a little bit of new floor before I could put in the gas pedal. Yeah, see? Yeah. I mean, it's all warmed up, so it's not going to give me any trouble, but in the morning you'll need to pull this. But that's what my RPMs are at. It's at like 1,000, but I kind of wanted it to be at like maybe 600, just a gentle idle. But like when I was like fooling around with the distributor and like twisting it and advancing the timing, because somebody on the forum said you could have probably twisted it one more time during your break-in, but I didn't. But then I did it out here, you know, like yesterday. But you turn the distributor and it like picks up the speed, and the RPMs went from like 600 all the way up to like over 1,000. So what he said was true. Like, it did sort of smooth it out a little bit, right? But it raised the RPMs. And when I went over here and I adjusted the throttle screw and then also the mixture screw right here, right? It was the same thing. Like, you back it out until it runs rough, and then you screw it back in until it runs good, and then you keep going until it runs worse, and then well, no, actually, no, you don't. But you do that with the mixture screw. But anyways, and so what I did is I just found like a nice gentle spot for the throttle screw to be at, and I did the same thing with the mixture screw down here. You know, you turn it and turn it until it runs rough, until you're like plugging the mixture screw hole, which is a different circuit in the carburetor, because the throttle, when you activate the throttle, it opens up the throttle in the carburetor, right? But when you're not doing that and you don't touch the gas pedal, the engine will still run on its own, right? And that's because there's a separate little pathway inside the carburetor that allows gas to go from the float bowl here in the carburetor down through a small passageway and then getting delivered into the engine. And that's your idle mixture screw right here that is responsible for allowing that to happen, right? Right there it is, right there. This one, right here, right? And so what it does is it plugs a hole, right? And so like when you turn the screw, it plugs the hole a little bit and closes off the opening, and so there's not a lot of gas going through. And then the engine starts to go ba 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 ba, and it starts to run rough. And then you turn it back the other way, and then it runs good. And then you keep on turning it back the other way until it runs like really rich. There's a lot of gas going in there, and then you turn it back again, and then you find a nice gentle spot. And like what I did when I did both of those adjustments, as well as adjusting the carburetor, adjusting the distributor, you know, like undoing the clamp there and then like making it loose so that you can twist it with your hand, right? And you can advance or retard the timing. What I did is I tried to like smooth it out, but it just raised my RPMs up way up. And yeah, I didn't like it, but I mean, I guess the 1,000 RPM for an idle is what I'm going to have to live with, I guess, for now until I learn more about what's going on. Yeah, because when it's at around 600 RPM, idle, it's just like, it's kind of rough. It's like, it's kind of rough, you know? Yeah, anyways, I'm going to get back to work here and put the valve cover back on and start looking into the gas tank situation. Hi, everybody. As Uncle Tony says, I hope you got something out of that. Uncle Tony doesn't want you to do that when the engine's running, though. But then again, I mean, he's like, he's got another way to do it. You know, like he just like activates something down there. He makes a connection between the starter. Maybe he bridges a gap between the starter posts and activates it and turns the engine over so that the valves will turn, so that it'll be a little bit in a different scenario for him to use the feeler gauge. But I just did it when the engine was running. Anyways. All right. Okay. 1958 AMC Rambler Super Part 85. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.